The anti-bin tax campaign, particularly in Dublin, we did not succeed. I don't have time to go into it in that particular issue. It was quite a difficult campaign, perhaps more relevant, in fact, quite more relevant to today, is the major anti-water tax campaign that came to a focus and a culmination in Dublin, or in half of Dublin, 3 local authority areas of Dublin, when it was reintroduced by those local authorities in 1994, and then the succeeding years of 94, 5 and 6, an intense and major campaign was opened up on the basis of non-payment and on the basis of mass involvement of ordinary people. That campaign, central to it, and the rock on which it was built, was the non-payment of the water tax. And then on that was built a tremendous movement involving mobilizations, protests, pickets, myriads of information leaflets. In fact, I just had a chance only half an hour last night to go into my attic, and deep down among all the stuff I've accumulated over the years, I put my hands on only a tiny fraction of the stuff from that which you can look at after, but you get the idea there. This was an extremely active campaign, constantly fighting the councils and the governments. Hundreds were actively involved ordinary people, and it formed into the Federation of Dublin Anti-Water Charges campaign. Critical to it was defending the non-payment from the attacks of the councils and the state. Those attacks were quite intimidatory and quite intense. In November 1994, there were a spate of disconnections. There was a huge campaign of opposition to them in an organised fashion. People's Water was turned back on, and we had many protests to stop that happening. The government changed, if you remember, in November or early December of 94, from Fianna Fáil Labour to Fine Gael Labour. Under the pressure of the campaign, they called a halt to disconnections and then brought in a new law that the councils had to go to the district court to get an order permitting them for disconnection. That opened up a huge legal front that the campaign then had to respond to. And we met that campaign, that issue head on at the time, putting lawyers into the courts, mass mobilisations outside the courts. In fact, I think it was the very first cases in Rathfarnham, probably in January or February of 95. The people who are there will not forget, maybe 400 or 500 people outside, a packed courtroom inside with residents there to fight, lawyers representing them, and during when one of the lawyers paused for a minute in the proceedings, the people inside could hear clearly, coming from outside, from the rally that was being held, one of the stalwarts of the campaign singing a song called "Jailor, Bring Me Water," which broke the courtroom into mirth. That was a flavour of what was going on at the time. They then used the debt collecting law, 2 or 3 years. They had up to 2,000 of our people in the court. That's just 2 days in Swords and Balbriggan in one particular year. All our people and the campaign. So you can get a flavour of the intensity, and that we had massive political pressure. We had a by-election in Dublin West in 1996, which scared the daylights out of the establishment when we came within a fraction of overturning the entire establishment in that. All the resistance, all the political pressure, all the court cases, everything was based on the mass non-payment campaign. That was critical. That yielded fruit in December of 1996 when the government was forced to announce the abolition for the entire country of water charges. That was a fantastic achievement for working class people's power and for the resolve of the campaign that brought all that working class people's power together. Only for that, what level would water and other taxes that would have been increased much earlier be at the present time? It's only up to your imagination. Easily well over €1,000 as an intolerable burden on our people. We have similar models, if you like, in a sense, in different ways. The poll tax in Britain, all these things. Now, finally, Chairman and friends and colleagues and comrades, huge organisational challenges are posed in front of us. How to organise? That's the second half of the meeting. Gregor Carr, who was the secretary of the Federation of Dublin Anti-Water Charges campaign, I was the chairman myself, is going to introduce that and deal there with some of the proposals and the basic thinking up to now of the steering committee that has been meeting to make some proposals and approaches in that regard. The methods that we will use, how we will build, that is crucial. There are many, many things that we can't go into in great detail here today. We may be faced with an anti-water metering campaign next year as part of this. We don't know particularly in detail what they will do. You have the septic tank issue in rural areas. There are people here who have been involved in that, and they will deal with that as well. But my feeling is that this attempt to put an annual charge on private households, ordinary people, for septic tank in rural Ireland is really another arm of forcing out of ordinary people, working class people, whoever, more funds for the state, and it's intimately linked. Lastly, Chairman, the left has initiated this campaign. Left groups, and that was also the case in the 90s. Left groups are central to putting the groundwork in place and central to bringing energy and ideas and so on. But this campaign will not win unless it becomes a campaign of massive people power involving actively tens of thousands of ordinary people right around the country. Greg will deal with that again in detail, but to state the principle, unless people are active in every area, coming to the meetings, taking responsibility for building the campaign, for getting the information out to other residents, for collecting the funds that will be necessary to fight it, for taking democratic ownership and control. If we do not achieve that, and that has to be the aim of the campaign, in my view, leaving here today, so that we have a magnificent campaign of people power, democratically organised in every single way, inclusive, active in all the communities. We have to be prepared to defend our campaign. What will they throw at us? Very quickly, intimidatory legislation, maybe fines if we don't pay the household tax. Jailing has even been mentioned. Will they dare put householders in jail before having a few bankers in to prepare the way? Remains to be seen. We have to wait for the legislative detail to know precisely, but let's be prepared. Can they bring in new sneaky stuff that hasn't been thought about? Could they have deduction at source, for example, for the household taxes, an issue that we would have to be raised? Let's not underestimate what this weakened, rotten capitalist establishment, backed up by the European establishment, wants to throw to break resistance to their plans to try and have their system crawl out of the hole. With the trade union leadership in hiding, unfortunately for the most part in particular, this campaign can become a crucial element of a general resistance and fight back to the entire burden that has been put on the shoulders of our people at the present time. It could well develop as a major expression of anger and of people's representing their power and their anger and opposition to what has been piled in them in the last 3 years to bail out the rotten, corrupt system which has brought our society to the crisis that's in at the present time. You will gather from that, friends, and I know the people here will agree, there is a lot at stake. So I think we should have a good, fruitful, lively, positive discussion here today on these issues, and then in part 2 go on to see how do we build concretely so that we can put in the next few months a tremendous campaign reaching into every county and every part, that when they lay the first bill in front of our people, we will already have a mass basis laid down for resistance. And the time they attempt the first intimidatory tactic, there is a huge campaign of solidarity there to back up every person that they try and intimidate. Thank you very much.